Hi everyone, welcome to Bello's Designs. My name is Catherine and today we're going to be creating this card called Soft Summer, which is made using a variety of Lisa Horton inks. Let's talk about the things we'll need to get started. First, you'll need a piece of Multifarious cardstock trimmed down to 4 by 5¼ inches. I also have a piece of coordinating cardstock in a color that matches nicely. This is cut at 4 1/8 by 5 3/8 of an inch so that we have just the tiniest bit of a border around the Multifarious cardstock. And then I have a heavyweight cardstock which I have trimmed down to 8½ by 5½, and I have scored it so that we will end up with a finished card which is 5½ by 4¼ inches. For the inks we'll be using today, I have the Lisa Horton Cloud 9 Tourmaline Blue, Lisa Horton Cloud 9 in Garden Sage, Lisa Horton Cloud 9 in Spice Plum, and Juicy Pineapple. We'll also be using one of the Versafine Clairs, and I have this one in Nocturne. We'll also need a few other random supplies to get us going. I have some Stickles and Crystal to add a little bit of sparkle at the very end of our project. I'll be using a blending brush that I keep for my blues, as well as a watercolor blending brush to paint my inks onto my card. If you don't have one of these, you can order them. You'll get two with the Sweet Poppy fine tip brush pens, but I just happen to have this one in my stash, so I'll be using this one today. For stamps, we'll just need a few limited supplies. I have the single thistle from Sweet Poppy Stamps, as well as the summer flower from Lavinia, and the item number on that is LAV749. I'll link all the products down below the video description box to help you if you don't have any of these in your stash yet. We'll also be using the Lavinia Bud Stencil, which is ST002 buds. And finally, we'll need a couple of stamp blocks. And lastly, we'll be using the Sweet Petunia glue press. So I am back and I have all of my stamps already mounted onto my stamping platforms. So let's go ahead and get started. I'm going to begin by stamping the thistle, and I'll do that with the Garden Sage ink pad. I'm going to do one towards the right, standing straight up. Just give that a good press on there. These inks are really great for blending as well as stamping, and I just love that sage color. Okay, before I stamp the second one, I'm just going to reposition it so that I have a slight bend on the stamp. Easy bend. This is one of the nice things about working with photopolymer stamps, is that we can adjust them a little bit. So once again, I'm just going to stamp that thistle for a second time with the Garden Sage ink. And this one, I'd like to have it down a little bit lower. So we'll place it here going off of the card, just holding it down to give that ink a chance to set into the cardstock. There we have it. All right, now I'm going to come back with the summer flower from Lavinia, and once again bending the stamp just a little bit so we get a slight bend to it, and stamping it again with the sage. I'm going to put one small one right down here in the corner. Just going off the edge a little bit, and then we'll come back in and do a couple more and I've straightened that out now. I'm going to do one and maybe two more in on the right corner down here. So just ink it up again with the sage. Give it a little stamp off the edge. And I think there's room for one more, so I'm going to go ahead and squeeze one down there at the bottom. There we go, and it's okay that it's overlapping the stem on this one by a little bit because we'll be painting that in. My last stamp with this little arrangement down here is going to be with the larger of the two summer flowers. And once again, I'm going to bend it just a tiny little bit so it looks as though my flowers are bending in the wind. And I'm trying to figure out where I want it. You know, I think I'm going to... I had originally planned to use the larger of the two summer flowers right in the middle of my thistles, but I think as I'm working through this project, I don't have a whole lot of space, so what I'm going to do is use the smaller one just one more time in the middle. So I'll get that all inked up. Right there in the middle. Great, there we go. All right, for the next part of my project, I'm going to be using the bud stencil, and I am just going to place this at an angle. And I want just a little tiny bit of the tourmaline in the background. So we're going to be switching from the garden stage to the tourmaline blue. All right, so I'll just get a little bit of ink on that blending brush. And just a light blend, so I'm going to hold it down because I don't need much. And avoiding those flowers and just moving slightly up my card. There we go. We just want a little hint of that there. And I'll just add a little bit down here in the corner. Right, there we go. I'm pretty happy with how that looks. That's all we need for stenciling. So I'm going to go ahead and move that tourmaline out of the way for now. And while we have our stamps out, we might as well go ahead and stamp our little bumblebee. So I'll be using the Versafine Clair for the bumblebee, just because I really wanted a black and white bumblebee. It doesn't really matter which inks you use, but I have the Versafine Clair in black, and I don't have a black Lisa Horton in my collection yet. So I'll just pop that down right there, and that's the only bumblebee we'll be adding to our picture today. All right, I'm going to move those out of the way, and I'm going to come back in. I'm going to use my glass mat to pick up paint from my stamp pad. So this is what I'll be using to paint today, are my Lisa Horton inks. So we'll start with the bumblebee, and I'll just put a little dab of yellow there. And we really don't want the brush to be too wet. Just a little damp is all we need. I don't want my project to be super wet, so I'm going to dry that off a little bit. Come back in and just pick up a little bit of that yellow here. And there we go. That's all. Let's see. I think we'll add just a little more. And that's all we need for the yellow. We'll be done with that. All right, now that my bumblebee is all colored in, the only thing we have left to do on this project really is to fill in the flowers. So I'm going to start with the bloom in the spiced plum, and once again I'm just going to dab a little bit of ink onto my glass mat and I'll be picking it up from there. Because the Lisa Horton inks are water-based, we do not want our paintbrush to be very wet, just a little damp. And I'm going to add a little color, and I just want to try it out and make sure that I'm happy with that color. So we'll be picking it up right from our glass mat and adding it to our blooms. All right, as you can see, the flowers are painted in with the plum, and by keeping our brush just a little damp, we haven't smudged any of the green ink on those flowers, and we still have that beautiful color showing through. Let's go ahead and color in the bottom of the bloom and the stem on the thistle. I love how quickly this card comes together. You can see we're nearly finished. The last step is going to be to just add a little bit of Stickles to the summer flowers. So now I've dried my card and noticed that I actually missed the stem on the thistle, and my ink is still out, so we'll see. I'm pretty sure that's going to be damp enough. Sure is, hasn't dried yet. So we'll be picking up some of that and just completing the stem on the thistle, and that brush is a little wetter than I'd like it to be. Go. Much better. All right, and I don't think I've missed anything else. I think it's all complete and it's ready to tie it all together. Before we finish up, let's go ahead and stamp a coordinating envelope, and I'm just going to do that with a quick stamp of the summer flowers. I'll be using the sage ink to do that. And some scrap paper over here. And we'll just give it a nice little press right there in the corner. And there we go, perfect. All right. So I'm going to bring my glue press over, and we'll be using that to assemble our card. So we'll start with the top panel that we have stamped and decorated. I like to do just a very thin line of glue right around the edge, and then a little bit more in the middle for some added stick. the center of our colored panel. There we go. I wish that I had a cardstock that was a little closer to the sage green, but this was the closest thing that I had, and I think that looks pretty good. And we'll put that right onto our card base. And once again, just using a very small, thin line of glue around the edge of my panel. Add a little bit extra to the inside for some added strength. And there it is, all put together. There's the envelope that we made together today. And here is our sample, and I'm not sure where I put the envelope down, so we'll just put those there like that. Okay, so that was a very quick and easy card showing you how versatile the Lisa Horton inks can be. So I hope that you'll give it a try and maybe add some of these colors to your collection at home. Thanks for joining me today. Have a great week.